Okay, we are live.
All right, well, thanks everyone for sticking around here to the end of the Contributor Summit. It's been a long day with lots of good talks. And what I'll be showing today is mostly live demo, so no slideshows or anything like that. And we'll be looking at hypermodern pipeline development using Visual Studio Code. And in particular, we're going to be looking at 3 different extensions that will really take your pipeline development to the next level. So, creating your pipelines faster, but also with less errors and more consistent style. And the first plugin we're going to look at is the Jenkins doc plugin or extension. And what's great about this extension is it's going to give you auto completion inside of Visual Studio Code for the more common pipeline build steps. All right, bring over my editor. All right, so if you're new to the Visual Studio Code and the extensions, you can usually go to their marketplace online and Google for what you're looking for. Like you might Google for Jenkins or you might Google for Groovy and click the install button and it will install. And also there's an extension pane that you can also do the same thing. You can search for the extensions that you want, and it will pull them up and allow you to install them. So starting out, right, you're wanting to write some kind of pipeline, and we almost always start with like the node block. So as I start typing, we instantly start seeing some auto completion of steps that are available inside of Jenkins. So we get the node block. And we see in the far right corner that it's part of the workflow durable task step plugin. And it tells us exactly what this particular block of code can do for us. And if we use the auto completion to complete it for us, we'll get these wrench icons, and these are going to be for the parameters that this particular step can take. So here we see that it takes a label, and we get all kinds of detail inside the IDE about what the label can do and how we can use this label. I'm not going to use the label because I don't have any agents configured, but we can drop down here and we can just start writing some maybe example code. And I'm going to call this make believe get result function. I probably should have done a lot of this boilerplate before, but we'll do it anyways. And so a lot of this code I'm actually going to reuse for some other plugins, so that's why it's important. Right, and so we might want to throw an error, right? So the first thing I did was I'm checking just to make sure that the variable message isn't null. So just doing a null check. And then, if this get result is some kind of test result, we might want to check to see if the test result is a failure. So I'm checking for that. And if it is a failure, we probably want to stop the pipeline. So as I type error, we're going to get some more help. All these, again, are steps that can be run inside the pipeline. And we're seeing that, we can signal an error, and it's the same as throwing an exception, right? But this won't print a stack trace, which I don't want for this particular message. So I can come in here and I can use the auto help to say, okay, I want to throw some kind of error. And then at the end, right, of my pipeline, so I've gotten my test result. I've thrown some kind of error to kill the build if the test result is not good. And now I want to echo maybe the results, right? Or I want to print the results. So here, again, we can use the auto completion to figure out exactly what we need to do. And what I really like about the Jenkins doc plugin is it allows me to find so many steps inside of Jenkins that I didn't even know existed. So if I want to look like, if I type write, I get all these different things that I might not have known about. I knew about JSON and YAML, but I didn't know there was XML and CSV and these kind of things. Same thing if I want to type like build, we start seeing all these different things that I just didn't know was possible inside of a Jenkins job. Again, and most of these are plugins. You probably don't have them on your Jenkins, but this also tells you the plugins themselves and how to get to them, or which ones to download. And then the other thing that I like is not just build steps, but oftentimes I want to use some kind of environment variable, but I forget maybe the exact syntax or the exact variable I want. So here it's giving me a bunch of predefined variables that I'm most likely going to have access to inside of my pipeline. And so this has been a really great plugin for me, just in day-to-day building pipelines at work. So moving on to the next one, we'll talk about Groovy lint format and fix. And this is a really good plugin because it's not just going to make your code more consistent, but it actually helps me find bugs all the time. Little things I've done that is incorrect, that was not going to work correctly. This will usually find it and warn you in some type of way. So going back into my editor, I actually disabled some of these so that they would not interfere. So I'm going to enable this one. All right. And it should run, and I actually have some pre-configured jobs. So this is going to be the same code that we just wrote. Now I'm hoping this plugin kicks in. I might reload my window just to make sure that the plugin's going to work.
Yeah,
okay, there we go. Yep, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we see it.
Yeah, so now it's reporting 47 problems, but most of the problems are just the blank lines. So it's going to highlight issues that it finds inside your code. And if you hover over them, you're going to get a little bit of a sneak peek of why it's throwing an error. So here it's telling me that this string is really just a regular string, and it doesn't have to be wrapped in double quotes like a Groovy string that has variables in it. And what I really like is if we go to quick fix, it will automatically fix some of these things for you. So if I want to replace just this example or all examples in this file, it'll do that. I can also disable things, which I'll show you in a second. But what I really like is when sometimes it'll show me an error that with the code that it doesn't like, and I don't understand it. But if I click the link, it will say, it'll give me a little bit more in detail about why you wouldn't want to do what you're doing. And even more detail, if you actually click the link, it will take you to the CodeNarc webpage, which is the actual underlying tool that's doing this, which is, I can talk about that as well, about the hierarchy of open source projects, which kind of make this possible. So at the very bottom of the layer, we have the CodeNarc, which is what's actually doing the linting. And then if we go back to the marketplace page, there is a packaged version of CodeNarc using NPM. So someone has packaged up CodeNarc in NPM, and then the Visual Studio Code Groovy lint extension is using that packaged CodeNarc server. So that's kind of the hierarchy there. But yeah, not only does it show you lots of different warnings, but it usually has pretty good detail on why it's complaining. And it allows you to really understand, hey, should I ignore this or should I enforce this? You know, and those kind of things. So if you want to enforce something, you know, like I said, there's the quick fix, and you can, you know, fix just this example or all examples. But what you can do, there's two different things. You can run format. Format will fix everything. But you can also run, I think it's, yeah, fix all auto-fixable problems, and that does the same thing. So if I click this, the code is going to get formatted. So it took away all the extra space that I did when I hid this function from you guys. It fixed, I had weird spaces here. I had double quotes. Actually, if I go back, we can see it, right? So there was just some spacing issues that it didn't like, some quoting issues that it didn't like, but it will fix all those. And then one of the things that's left is this, which I find really unique. It's telling me that, hey, this if condition can kind of be removed because it's the same thing as a Elvis operator. So instead of writing what I wrote, I could have just done message equals message like this. So it's the same code, just without the if. And so those are the kind of fixes that you can expect. There's actually literally thousands. So I'm not going to show you every single kind of fix that you can get. Let's see, what do we got down here? Yeah, so this is saying, hey, this could be a fill. You don't need to write a getter for this. It thinks it's a getter. I can go to quick fix and I can say, well, let's disable that for this file. And when I do that, I'm going to get a comment block at the top, and that disabled that warning. This is saying, hey, you have a duplicate string literal. So I have failure here and I have failure here. I can get rid of that. And I can do this by doing it per line, like this. Or what you might find for some of these things is you want to enforce it in your entire project. And so for that, it'll automatically create the file for me, but I'm using an existing repository, but it'll create this groovy lint file. And here's the things that I'm enforcing or not enforcing for my entire project. So, and like I said, it'll create this file for you. If you right click or do the quick fix and do disable for entire project, it'll go ahead and put it in here, put it in your file for you. Let's see. Yeah, so that's it. I mean, there's lots and lots and lots of fixes that it's going to have that I didn't show here today. But yeah, you can get more information about these errors, or you can just ignore these errors completely. And then the third thing extension I would like to show today, go away. There we go. Is Groovy Guru. And so what Groovy Guru is it provides auto completion and IntelliSense for your Groovy code. So not the pipeline steps, but the actual Groovy code. So Groovy classes, Groovy primitives like list and things like that. And this is also built on a bunch of open source projects. So powering it is the open source Groovy language server, which has been open source and brought to you guys by a company called Moonshine IDE that builds some kind of Java-based IDE. So it's pretty cool that they have open sourced that. And they also provided the starter extension code for the Groovy Guru extension. And so what we'll do is we'll turn this on. And I've actually been having a lot of problems in a recent update with Docker, where it's been crashing and taking out my entire WSL. So let's hope, if I reload this window, let's hope that this extension doesn't crash my computer. Or more so, it's Docker, I think, but I haven't had a lot of time to debug this. All right, so this is the exact same code that we had before, the code that we linted and set up. And so one of the things that's interesting is with the Groovy Guru extension, we can get more information about the exact method that's being called and the type that it's returning. So here, the get result function returns a string. And we can see that in the editor that it's returning a string. But even though that we've defined message as being an object, we use the define keyword, it still understands that message is a string, right? So we haven't confused it because we didn't type it inside of our pipeline job. As long as the function is typed correctly, the Groovy language server is going to understand what's going on here. One of the things we can do is, we have this test result that comes back as failure. But someone's eventually going to change that, and they're going to say, well, it's a test failure, and then our job's going to break. So one of the things we can do is we can come in here and fix that by getting all the different methods that can be called on a string inside a Groovy. So we can come through here, we could look, most languages have some kind of contains message where we can contain a substring. So here it is. And then we can put our failure in this, right? And we can look, we can see that message or contains is going to return to us a Boolean, and it's going to take some kind of character sequence as a parameter. Some other things that you can do with GroovyGuru is it will also do doc strings. So if we come down here, we can write some kind of doc string. Actually, I'm going to copy and paste because I already have one ready. So we can write this doc string, and then when we hover, we get the doc string inside of our IDE, right? So if you're using Jenkins shared libraries and you're writing doc strings, but maybe you don't get to really use them inside of your IDE when you're writing your jobs, now those doc strings are going to be available. The other thing that GroovyGuru can do for you is help you with your imports. So I'm inside my shared library right now. And hopefully, yeah, this will pull up all the different classes and things that I can use inside of this job. So we can do something like system dot, I'm looking for platform. There it is. So we can import something like this. Another way you can import things, if you start typing the class name, it will also import it automatically. So if I want a shell, I can start typing and it's finding all the different shell classes. And all I got to do is find my library and hit enter, and it's going to import that for me automatically. And then I can see all the different methods. This platform is something that's inside of my shared library, but we can use it like this. And there we go. We got the typing. And then we can do the things that we want to do, like maybe call this function. And we can see that we can pass some kind of command to it, and the command is going to be executed in whatever system shell is the default for this platform. So in this case, it would be bash. And then I can echo something like this. Let's see, did I miss anything? I think that's about it. So that's 3 different plugins that you can use inside of Visual Studio Code that will make your Jenkins pipelines faster to write. And for me, it catches a lot of bugs and gotchas. I guess that's one thing I didn't cover with the linting. But if I return something right here, it's going to detect that this code is all dead code, that this code can't be reached. So these are the kind of little fixes that the linter can find for you. Questions?
It looks really great, though when I was preparing my presentation, I did a presentation about Visual Code development flow on Tuesday. And there I had a lot of issues with plugin response times, because sometimes they seem to be hanging for something like minutes before producing results and suggestions. Do you experience it on your machine?
Which plugins? So which?
So firstly, pipeline doc, it's a bit slow, at least on my machine. And yeah, also for static analysis plugins, for me, it seemed to be very slow.
Are these Visual Studio Code plugins?
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't used them. I don't think so. The ones I showed today was. Are you talking about the ones I showed today? or different ones?
For static analysis, not. For static analysis, I use another plugin.
Gotcha.
But
So
yeah, I tried GroovyLint as well, and for me, GroovyLint. So it takes a lot for it to be displayed.
yeah, so I think for the Groovy lint, I think they've acknowledged that for very large jobs, for lots of code, it can be slow. And I have found it to be slow, but I find that it's better if I don't open up too many tabs. So just like Chrome, if I don't have 15 or 20 Groovy files up, it seems to know to only lint the one that's open. Yeah.
I have a question, Levi.
Sure.
You said when you started the demo for the Groovy Guru, which uses the Groovy language server.
Yeah.
Does that mean that the code I'm editing gets uploaded to a server?
Good question. So the Groovy language server is this specification of a protocol that Microsoft released that talked about how some kind of program should be able to talk to the IDE so that it could provide auto completion and help and all kinds of things. So they call it a language server. I guess it could run in the cloud, but in this case, it's running locally. It's just a Java application. And if I look at the running processes, we should see the local Java process running. Oh, there's a lot of processes running. Here it is. So there's a Java command right here, and it's pointing to let's see if we can make it bigger. There we go. So it's pointing to the Groovy language server all.jar. So that's all running locally.
Okay, yeah, I guess that answers my question.
Yep. And most of the auto completion that you're going to have in Visual Studio Code is all using, most of it, as far as I know, is using the same kind of format. The Groovy, or I'm sorry, the Microsoft language server specification. So like Node and Python all use some kind of binary or application to actually handle the duties of auto completion, you know, and displaying comments and things like that.
Okay. Okay.
All right, that's all I had.
Now this does, like you said, this doesn't know which plugins you have on, because you could have multiple different Jenkins servers or controllers. So this cannot know which instance of Jenkins you're targeting. So when you use methods in here that you need to install the plugin, and you pointed out that it will tell you which plugin the step comes from, so you could install it. Does it have any ability to give me a list of the plugins that I'm sort of implying in my file after I'm done writing my beautiful Jenkins file?
No, not currently. I think that would be a good feature enhancement for it to maybe leave a comment at the top of the file that these are the required plugins for this job. I think that would definitely be a great enhancement to it. But yeah, currently I'm not sure how they get all the steps and stuff inside of the plugin. I'm guessing they are creating it just like the Jenkins plugin pages, where they, you know, every plugin step has that kind of self-built documentation. I'm guessing they're scraping it in a similar way. So this should have.
Yeah, last time I checked the code, they were just retrieving what Jenkins builds, because you can retrieve this data. It's a public artifact.
Sure. So yeah, every plugin that's in like the plugin documentation is going to be represented here, regardless if it's on your Jenkins instance or not. I think Oleg, you had mentioned in the past that it would be cool to connect it to a running Jenkins and only show
Yeah.
what's available to you. That's definitely something that could be done. But yeah, I think a good first step would be to have some kind of command inside of Visual Studio Code where you could say, you know, like plugin manifest, and it would drop at the top of the page a comment with all the plugins you need. So yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah, unfortunately, it misses one of popular cases, pipeline libraries, because right now a language server doesn't retrieve any information from your local instance. And addition would be not only filtering out what's not there, but adding what is there.
Yeah.
Because yeah, pipeline libraries, even GDSL doesn't really document them, but in many cases, it's possible to dump the information.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
This is a good presentation, Levi. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for sure. And we definitely need to publish that. And if you would be interested to repeat it at some point as Jenkins Online Meetup, you're more than welcome to do that.
Sure.
Because yeah, it would be a good addition. We also did a presentation on Tuesday, but we were focusing rather testing pipelines. So we spent more time on pipeline test unit and other bits, but we also briefly talked about the Visual Studio Code setup.
Yes. I almost mentioned that in the beginning of this talk, that you know this talk was really born out of two different things. There was a conversation in the Jenkins discourse about what's the best way to do pipeline development nowadays. And so everyone was talking about how they do it. And I learned a lot from that. And then again, like you said, Oleg, you presented kind of the same thing as this, but except for you didn't go into much detail about the actual writing of the code, but more of how do we take this code and then test it and get it into a running Jenkins as quickly as possible, or like shortening that feedback loop. So that's kind of what I got going on here. It's really not a part of this talk, but this entire editor is running inside of a Jenkins container with a full-fledged Jenkins. And there's nothing anyone has to do to get that running themselves. If they have Docker and Visual Studio Code and they open this repo, they'll automatically run their job inside of that Jenkins container. So if we come up here, every job that I have defined in Jenkins is automatically loaded. So here's my example jobs that we just kind of went through. And if we build this job, it should change automatically. So we should build it because I've never built it before and it probably will fail. Yeah, so it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's erroring failure. But if we come back into here and we change this message in this function at the bottom from failure to hello JCS, Jenkins Contributor Summit. If we go back into Jenkins and rerun this by hitting build, I'm hoping we get the updated changes. We'll see in a second. No, no, I didn't get the updated changes. So I'm not sure what that is because this usually works. Did I change the wrong file? No. Did I not save? Let me try that. I hope you're not recording this unscripted part. Third time's a charm, maybe?
It's okay for a demo. Don't worry.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not working, but the way it usually works is it's using the, what's it called? That checkout step, the file checkout step. And you can see that it says modified file. So it sees that we only changed one file. Is there a bug in my logic? No? Yeah, I don't know why it doesn't work.
What's create? What's line 15? What does that do?
Yeah, that's a good point. There's nothing. I was showing things. Yeah, I'm not I'm not exactly sure why it doesn't work. I'm not sure I want to go into debugging it. Oh, I know why. So at the top, it's only loading libraries. So if I would go into a library right now and make a library change, the library change is going to be live on every build. So if I go into my shared library and add something, it would be live. The job itself is created when the Jenkins container is created. So it points to a static file. So if I go to configure, it's never going to change. Right, it's whatever the job was when it was created when the container started. So that's my bad. That was me confusing the situation. The way this works is this is what's getting, or if I was using a shared library, that's what's getting hot reloaded. If that makes sense.
It totally does. So yeah, thanks for the introduction. And yeah, the Visual Studio Code Developer tooling is very promising. So I guess it's right now it's the best stack available for Jenkins pipeline development. And yeah, I believe it will retain the best at least until somebody implements pipeline debugger.
Yes.
You said there was a conversation on the discourse where people are posting how they go about testing their Jenkins pipelines and perhaps libraries. Do you remember which?
Yep,
which one?
right here.
Better
I can drop this
pipeline
link
development flow. Okay, yeah, thanks for the pointer.
Yeah, this is kind of, someone just asked, hey, you know, how are people doing their pipeline development? And lots of people kind of weighed in with all the different ways that they get their code quickly into Jenkins. And yeah, it was a great starting point. And then Oleg, I haven't seen your recording, but I know you shared the slides on your Twitter.
Yeah, so my recording won't be particularly useful because it's in Russian.
Oh.
Yeah, I consider doing presentation again, but at the same time you presented the entire development tools part, basically in more details than me. But maybe we will collaborate with Stanislav Ovchar to present something else. I mean, at least the development tools part and testing parts.
Yes. All right.
I cannot think of other questions I have, so I guess I don't have any more questions.
Yeah, so for me, a question is, do you have roadmap for extension pack? Do you plan to integrate any additional plugins and use cases there in the foreseeable future?
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, anyone that wants to see an extension added is happy to either raise a pull request to add it, or create like a feature request for it. I would like to, I guess I chose the wrong name for it. Jenkins extension pack is pretty bland. I want something specifically for developing pipelines. Was probably be my only prerequisite. And I just kind of want to keep it to things that I feel like I can't live without. I've tried a bunch of different extensions. And like you said, some don't work so great, and they're more frustrating than they are rewarding. But yeah, I would love to find and keep discovering better and better pipeline extensions, or things that will help me be better and quicker day to day, because I write a lot of pipelines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's see. Yeah, for me, extension pack has been quite good. Yeah, I mean, adding some support for connected services would help. Sure. Because yeah, right now the experience is a bit different. Also, I would be interested in doing configuration as code and pipeline co-development. I'm not sure whether you would consider having the Jenkins file runner plugin in extension pack, because I think that it's not a good use case, but maybe at some point too.
I mean, it would certainly be interesting. In the Visual Studio Code API for testing, I don't have a thing up right now. Here it is, run and debug. No, that's not testing. Usually there's like the testing, there's like usually a like a beaker, like a scientific beaker here that represents testing. And they actually let you show test status like in here, in the gutter, they call it, over here where the lines are. So there's lots of cool things that can be done around testing. And I know you kind of outlined some rough steps to get Jenkins file runner into Visual Studio Code. You were talking about some kind of Java thing that lets you package Java as like a standalone binary and things like that. So
yeah, something like that, mostly with JBank, not Java directly.
Yeah. I think that would be really interesting. I think the problem goes back to plugins and shared libraries. So there would have to be some kind of setup in my repo so that we can install the right plugins and the right shared library into the runner, so that when I'm in this file, I can pull up a command and say like run file, run Jenkins file, and it will execute it.
Mm-hmm. So yeah.
So testing Jenkins files and pipeline libraries is still, I don't know if I should say it's still an unsolved problem, because there's different ways of doing it, but having I guess, expedient way or streamlined way of doing it is not, it's still the holy grail.
So for testing, I think it's different. So pipelines, if we're talking about the job, I mean, the best way to run the job is either, doing your development directly in the IDE by using replay, or by using the Jenkins file runner. So for instance, I have all these jobs that you see listed, and we can test those pretty easily using the Jenkins file runner to run those. I can show you that in a second, or I can show you when Oleg is doing his presentation on the Jenkins file runner next. And then the second thing is like for shared libraries. So I just ran this job, and you can see it says, echo, hello from Bash. It's echoing that using the shell step. But if I come in here to the source code and I take the source code out, so we can come down here and we can change that on the fly. When you're having trouble reading your own things. Here it is. I think this one's actually going to work, this demo. Pretty confident. So here I've changed what gets run. And then if we rerun this job, we should not get the hello from bash anymore. There we go. So that was taking a change from a shared library and instantly running it and testing it inside of a job.
Mm-hmm.
And this Jenkins instance is, okay, lives on your local host.
Yep.
And how is that part of, I'm not following. I guess I've been away for too long, so I've missed how that all gets set up.
So it's really just how you configure your library. So if we go into Manage Jenkins and look at how the library is configured, I'm using a certain plugin. Instead of fetching the code from Git, I'm telling it to fetch the code locally.
Okay, I've done that before.
Right. So there's the legacy SCM retrieval message, and I'm using the file system plugin. And then so it's actually loading the code from here. And so when I change that file, it's in a subdirectory of this repo. And then what the plugin does is whenever your job starts, it just loads every file up as if you're on like the master branch of a repo. And so that's how the change gets loaded live, or on the fly, I should say. So this workspace here is that directory inside the Jenkins. All these files live in that directory.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay, I think I follow, yeah.
Yeah, so there is a question from Martinus. Have you used the Jenkins pipeline linter connector at some point? So
Go ahead.
Yeah, I used it. It didn't seem to be very stable, but it works.
Yes, I haven't checked it out either. Probably because very early on when I was looking for plugins and things like, or extensions for Visual Studio Code, I found the Groovy lint extension. But I will definitely check this out. I believe this uses like a built-in linter to Jenkins, right? Does the Jenkins engine have a linter?
Yeah, so it connects to linter on Jenkins and verifies that. So the main downside is that it supports only declarative pipeline. Hence, it hasn't been much of a use for me personally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was able to get it running just for the demo on Tuesday. You need to specify multiple fields because it needs to talk via REST API without identification, which is reasonable, but once you get it running, it works okay.
It's very popular. 77,000 installs is a lot. No, I think, yeah, same here. I mainly use, I only use scripted. I don't know the declarative pipeline syntax that well, but I don't think the declarative syntax would work very well with Groovy lint. So definitely if you're using declarative, this seems like the way to go. Lots of contributors as well.
Yeah, so somebody definitely finds this useful. Well, declarative pipeline has many users, so it's okay.
All right, do we want to take a break? And Oleg, you'll come back and do your thing, or when do you want to start your presentation on JFR?
I would rather prefer to take a break
Sure.
because yeah, I didn't get much sleep today, so maybe trying to make some tea would be nice. I don't have coffee either. Okay, so yeah, see you in 12 minutes.
Okay, see you guys then.
Okay.
Yeah, bye.